Okay, we are back, and sorry again for that cutoff. Like I was saying, about Cobra Kai, I hope that the fight between Johnny and Daniel, if there is gonna be one, I hope it doesn't prevent them from potentially finding that they are more alike than they realize, and they can be friends. With that said, I actually stumbled across something a while back on fanfiction.net. It was basically an attempted Karate Kid Mortal Kombat crossover. It's a brief one. I don't think it got a chance to be finished. In fact, that's the one problem with a lot of fanfics on fanfiction.net is that a lot of them never get finished. And I always believe don't start something you can't finish. If it takes time, it takes time. But at least try to get it finished. But yeah, essentially, the fanfic, it basically opened up, I believe...
Oh, the sheriff. Let's see if he brought some decent weapons.
It opened up, I believe, right at, like, a little bit after, okay, anyone who remembers Karate Kid Part 2 knows that the ending of the first movie and the beginning of the second, there was, like, I don't know, maybe a 6-month gap, because it was, like, December when the tournament took place, and it was like, at the end of the school year that, you know, he took the trip to Okinawa. But anyways, yeah, it was likely during the 6-month gap, they were still in school. Johnny and Daniel were supposedly best friends after the whole rivalry they had in the first movie. And he comes home and he gets a scroll inviting him to the Mortal Kombat tournament. He takes it, shows it to Mr. Miyagi, but Mr. Miyagi is familiar with it, likely having participated in the tournament before and just barely surviving. And he does not want Daniel to go through with the tournament. And yeah, like I said, it was incomplete, so it's probably still incomplete right now, even as I speak. But yeah, that got me thinking, what would the entire Karate Kid series be like had Daniel and Johnny actually been friends right then and there? I'll get to that in a moment.
Ooh, now who in their right mind would leave? Oh shit.
Now this is something I think Raphael from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles would say in an R-rated Ninja Turtles movie.
Let's go!
Yeah, I think Raph would definitely say that.
It sure looks like it could put some holes in some bodies.
You need to catch this thing, Wang, before it can return to its masters.
Masters?
It was sent here by the ancients, the rulers of the Shadow Realm.
Oh, lovely. Anything else I should know about?
Probably, but I don't want to upset you.
Too late.
Ah! The rabbit that comes out of here usually turns into the demon rabbit. You know what I think? I think the whole demon rabbit thing doesn't work on casual mode, which really sucks. But yeah, back to what I was saying. I saw a YouTuber on YouTube go into how Karate Kid Part 2 would have been different if it starred Johnny Lawrence. Hold on. Baseball has it wrong. Man with 4 balls cannot walk. Oh, my thoughts exactly. But anyways, yeah, he basically has it where Daniel went his own way after the whole tournament thing, and then sometime after that, Mr. Miyagi, you know, finds Johnny upset because not only was he kicked out of Cobra Kai, but he's like probably struggling to find a job or something. And Miyagi remembers him and tries to console him. At first, he's like standoffish, but over time, he's finding himself being calmed by Mr. Miyagi, kind of like how Daniel was a bit in the early part of Karate Kid Part 1. And yeah, basically has it where after some training with Miyagi, Johnny goes to Okinawa with him, and the ending of Part 2 of Karate Kid Part 2 is likely to be potentially different. I mean, sure, Johnny could learn to be more calm and, like Daniel, spare Chozen, but then again, also, there could be a darker ending where he can't fully escape the teachings of Cobra Kai, and he actually kills Chozen. But I thought to myself, how would Karate Kid, the entire series, be different if you kept Daniel-san, but also added Johnny into the mix?
Something, or just stand there and breathe.
Huh.
They sure do smell like burnt taint when I do that.
But yeah, back to what I was saying. I imagine how, I imagine it where if it were to have gone like that, the next day after the tournament from the first movie, Johnny seeks out Mr. Miyagi, wanting to thank him for saving him from his own corrupt sensei, and he arrives at the place where Mr. Miyagi and Daniel-san reside, and he doesn't find Mr. Miyagi right away. He sees Daniel, and there's like at first an awkward moment between them, but then Johnny goes and reminds Daniel that he meant the truth, that he does respect him for having stood up to him. Lucky numbers 23, 34, 42, 69, 666. Anyways, and then because of this, Daniel tells Johnny he can wait for Mr. Miyagi, but in the meantime, they kind of talk in a sort of competitive way. He's saying he could teach him something. Johnny says, "I don't think I want to learn your sissy way of karate."
Ancients. Why do they want the Nobitsura Kage?
The ancients are immortal beings. They rule the Shadow Realm, and nothing can challenge them.
Okay.
Except for this sword.
Ah, so they want it?
Yeah.
Nice Wayne's World reference there. Yeah. But yeah, anyways, like I was saying, basically, No demon rabbit. Yeah, it must be in the higher levels. But yeah, like I was saying, Daniel and Johnny start talking competitively. You know, he says, I don't want to learn your sissy way of karate. And then Daniel is like, my sissy way of karate is what beat you. And then Johnny decides, yeah, that's true. So then the two of them wander off to the dojo, and he starts showing Johnny what essentially what Mr. Miyagi taught him, same exact way. And
How do you like the party now?
ha! But yeah, anyways, Daniel starts teaching Johnny, and Mr. Miyagi arrives and smiles because he's impressed that his student is now teaching his adversary. And basically, when the whole Okinawa thing comes... Now, here's my mistake, not the Okinawa thing. Then it does the whole 6 months later kind of thing, where... post, Karate Kid Part 1, 6 months have passed, and both Johnny and Daniel are friends. And, both friends and rivals. Basically, Daniel's teaching Johnny, and
You reap what you sow.
Johnny's teaching Daniel some Cobra Kai, and which is not a lot. He's trying to, teach him just the techniques that are effective, and Daniel's continuing to teach the Miyagi-Do way, and it's sort of a balancing act, which is what Mr. Miyagi always says is the key to living a proper, respectful life, and that's balance. Balance between the good and the bad. And then, when Mr. Miyagi gets word he wants to go to Okinawa... Well, by the way, before the whole Okinawa thing, essentially, if any of the Cobra Kais that were with Johnny, if any of them were really his friends, then maybe they would get involved in the Miyagi-Do way as well. But if it was just Johnny, then it'll just be Johnny. Bottom line is, by the time of the whole Okinawa thing, both Daniel and Johnny would want to go. And maybe if any of the Cobras were, learning, who did go to Miyagi-Do with Johnny, they would also learn from him. They would also want to go as well.
Flying ones too?
And basically, when they get to Okinawa, Chozen is, of course, being the ruthless thug that he is, harassing, Daniel and Johnny. But unlike Daniel, Johnny would start off calm, but but the moment he starts pushing Daniel too far, Johnny would see Chozen as the kind of person he would have become had he not been put in his place by Daniel. So then he starts to stand up for Daniel, even though Daniel has the strength and power to stand up for himself. So Johnny immediately shows he dislikes Chozen. And since we remember, for those of you who remember Chozen wielding a like a butterfly knife at the end of the movie, he pulls it out during one of his bouts with Johnny, like in the middle of the film, and essentially stabs him, injuring him. Daniel arrives and is upset what has just happened. He's yelling for help, for an ambulance, and it looks like Johnny may actually die, but he actually survives. It's just he won't be fighting for a while. And basically, during the whole storm thing that takes place, you know, Johnny's safely in the hospital in the city, and
Guess I was just too much Wang for them to handle.
and whatchamacallit, yeah, so Johnny's safely in the hospital, and then come the festival at the end, Johnny is, like, brought there by wheelchair, able to attend the festival, but, you know, when Chozen makes his move, he can't, there's nothing Johnny can do, because he's still injured and unfit to fight. So, it's not just to want to protect, Kumiko, the girl that Daniel had, become infatuated with. It's also the fact that he wants to avenge Johnny for nearly getting killed by Chozen. So it's about love, friendship, and honor. That's how I would rewrite Karate Kid Part 2 with Johnny Lawrence involved. And for Karate Kid Part 3... For Karate Kid Part 3, when they come back, we all know how Daniel gets tricked into joining Cobra Kai by Terry I think it's Terry Silver.
Looks like we have to walk around.
But yeah, Silver, I believe his last name was. I think the first name was Terry. Yeah, Terry Silver was basically the guy who tricked Daniel into joining Cobra Kai, telling him lies, telling him that John Kreese disgraced the thing when it was all a ruse to lure him into a false sense of security and all that. What I would have it be is, Johnny, when he's training alone with Daniel back, you know, at the back at the Miyagi Dojo, back when they're, you know, doing their friendly spars, Daniel does something Cobra Kai that only Johnny knew about, yet he never taught Daniel because he didn't want to risk putting that on Daniel. And then he gets all up in his face wondering where he learned it, and then basically that's it. It looks like they're about to fight it out again, but this time, you know, it's more like the tournament rather than
Bigger they are.
a friendly spar. And I know Mike Barnes is supposed to be the adversary for Daniel in Karate Kid Part 3, but this time it's both Mike Barnes and Johnny, because even though Johnny is the good guy now, he doesn't like the direction that he doesn't like what Daniel is doing with his Cobra Kai knowledge, even though it's not real Cobra Kai, it's the corrupt version. And so the way I see it is this alternate Bon fucking Zai, I like that. Ha! Basically, I would have Karate Kid Part 3 end one of 3 different ways. One, it's almost like the movie. Daniel gets to sit on the side because he was champion, therefore can only wait until the end of the tournament before he fights. But before Mike Barnes has to face Daniel, he has to face Johnny. And
how about a firecracker in that ass?
basically, it goes one of three ways. Either Mike Barnes beats Johnny, resulting in him and squaring off with Daniel. And then Daniel, of course, wins. Or Johnny is the one who beats Mike, and it comes down to a rematch between Johnny and Daniel. But this time, it's a combination of them being friends and them being adversaries and rivals. So it's like just as much heartbreaking as it is, friendly, So the final match is like a rematch of the '84 tournament, and either like the first movie and the third, Daniel wins again, or Johnny wins this one, and it kind of balances things out where Johnny beat him the first time in the tournament, and then Daniel beat Johnny the first time in the tournament, and then Johnny returns the favor, and then they end it there as friends, That's how I would do it. And then the Cobra Kai would probably, taking place years later, would just be similar, but it's like their friendship is being torn apart because of circumstances and all that, like in the show, sort of. But anyways, okay, now I'm gonna... Okay, let's make sure I got all the stuff here. As soon as I make sure I got everything, I'm just gonna call it quits on this video, and then I will come back to you at another time. But in the meantime, I'd like to say, you just got wanged, and you can bet on that.